It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love, I mean, I looked over your free gift link last night and I was just like, I could feel so much love like coming from that screen. One of the reasons why I just am so magnetized to you as a couple is because you number one, you work together as like husband and wife and your parents, and you're doing so many beautiful things in the world as a
Mhm.
couple. And I really feel, I'm going to use this word, I really feel that like there's this, I'm going to say this out loud. I feel like you're like the icons of the, we're moving from like king and queen into like true kings and queens of like love and and like I don't know, I know that like
Um,
everybody has their things and everybody gets into these things, but like I really do feel like men and women who are embodied in their divinity and following this pathway, like I so admire that. And I don't, I just would love to like open this community up to like why I really like sought after this this relationship, and why I really want to highlight this is because there's so much trauma within marriage and relationships, and so much of it
families.
coming
Yeah.
is coming up right now.
Yeah.
It is so deeply ingrained in my life, as a woman and as a mother and as a wife, and as a divine feminine who suffered with
Mhm.
abuse and really was on the other side of the spectrum and climbed back to like this is what it's supposed to be. And
Mhm.
I'm going to give you guys the kind of the stage. I'm going to give you the stage here, but a couple of things that I want to like really hone in on and hear from you guys, man, women. Conscious love.
Mhm.
What is it? Because so many people are seeking it. Because so many women
Mhm.
are conscious, so many men are conscious, and they're like, where, how do we bring that in? How do I
Yeah.
make it work? So, you guys,
Well,
Beautiful.
thank you for the beautiful intro.
Yeah.
And
So
what I would like to say first, though, like I personally don't believe in the kings and queens anymore, because that means that there are, other people who are higher up or wearing crowns and stuff and on thrones.
yep,
I believe as a humanity, as a race, we're all now standing together in one big circle, holding hands, and we're all walking each other home. And I
beautiful.
think I think that's what we both.
yeah, I try to embody certainly
Mm.
at our events, but also in life. I think that the days of apex royalty or
Mm.
spirituality or kind of, someone being higher than another, it's kind of gone. That was sort of very Piscean age. In
Yeah,
this
we are in a
new
new
kind
age,
of
right?
Aquarian frequency is more humanitarian. We're all equal.
Together.
Some are a
Mm.
little bit further, maybe evolved in terms of having worked through some issues, having worked through trauma,
Shadow
and
work.
they can support a little bit more because they've walked the path before you.
And they've unlocked the codes of their own, they overcome their own hurts. And
Mm.
we're really big on shadow work,
Mhm.
right? That's for us, like shadow work is more like shadow illumination.
Mm.
Right.
Everything you're not aware of and that's hidden in the shadows can still play out and create your reality, which is of course the most biggest mirror that you receive in your daily life is with your partner,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the
Yeah.
closest purest reflection. And usually being a woman, right? Like when I met Krista, for example, I was projecting all the hurts and the traumas that I was carrying from my father, but also from my ancestral line and past lives and past life entanglements. And there's so much. So that has been the biggest, yeah, the most potent work that we have been doing and that we are offering to others, because we
Mhm.
believe you can only take others as far as you've gone yourself.
So
Beautiful.
I guess, our path, has been one of embodiment whereby in the beginning of our relationship, it was not harmonious. It was glitchy. You think, oh, I'm going to meet my beloved. It's going to be like rainbow.
Rainbow and
But,
butterflies.
it might
It
be
was
like,
not.
for a few weeks, but then, you're into this deepening, and then there's so many triggers that come up, and essentially it's goes back to the mother and father wound,
Mm.
and we project our wound onto our partner. We can't even see them clearly because we're looking through the eyes of that wounding.
It's like every program in trauma and wounding has it has a different lens on you, and you just can't see through that, differently, because that's the lens you wear.
And in a very close love relationship, such as a twin union, many people think that's going to be the solution to all their happiness. Yes, it is, but not in the way that you think, because your twin, your partner, literally reflects to you everything that is hidden in the shadow. And so it brings up so much.
Everything. Brings up everything.
I think that the simple principle is that, you can't blame your partner for your triggers and upsets. You need to own them for yourself and use your partner as a way of uncovering your hurts and your pains. And when you can do that, and you can take personal responsibility for your irritations and upsets, you can start working through it. Where people get stuck is in blame. And then what happens is that there's a cycle that plays out, and I invite everyone to tune into this. It's, expectation. I need my partner to behave in a certain way in order for me to feel love. And when they don't behave like that, then there's a dropping in of blaming. And then that blaming leads to disappointment. So this triad of expectation, disappointment, blame creates this cycle that kind of fuels this kind of, then growing resentment. And one of the things that we've noticed is that there's this dance between the masculine and feminine. One of them is kind of trust and surrender, right? The feminine needs to learn to trust the masculine.
Again,
right? Because of all, the patriarchal energies, there's been so much hurt and pain against the feminine, and the masculine needs to surrender to the feminine.
Which is already also a challenge on its own, because there's also been this false feminine that's been broadcasting for so long into our universe.
So if the feminine still holds resentment against the masculine, for example, then the masculine is not likely to surrender.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Thank goodness when we got together, Christoph was really well aware of this blame cycle, and I was not. So I was always like, you.
I didn't.
Thankfully, oh my goodness.
I didn't take it personally.
And thankfully he didn't blame me.
I was just waiting for her to, come to her own realization.
It took me 3 years.
2 or 3 years, yeah. And I think your question is what's conscious love. It's, this is what I say to like mates or friends when they're discussing relationships. In a relationship, the truth of it is you have to choose someone that's worth suffering for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that suffering means is that you're gonna have to go through some things, but you love them so much that you love them in their pain and you love them in their light. And it's by being with them in pain that you can develop a very deep closeness if you can navigate through it.
And if you not take it personal.
Yeah.
And I think what we share to a lot of couples, like usually there's one in the relationship that is a bit more aware, right? It has done a bit more work. And this, in our case, that was Christoph. So what he did to me, I always call it like he called me home. Like even in all my trigger moments, or of course, sometimes I got him triggered, but most of the time it was me and my triggers in those early days. And he just stood there like really steady and just looked in my eyes with love, like he knew that it was my programs and my woundings and my imprints. He knew it wasn't me. He could see beyond that. It wasn't me. So he really called me home.
It's never the person, it's always the programming that you don't like.
Let's can we talk about that? Because I talk about this all the time with my clients, that it's you're in the emotion but what's moving through you isn't actually you. Can you just share like
what happens here? So what happens when you go into a trigger or an upset, you're going actually analogical. You're going beyond time, back into the energy and emotion of the wounding as it happened.
The original imprint.
You go back into this child consciousness, which is why sometimes if it's still very charged in the system, the reactions come out for seemingly disproportionate triggers, right? All of a sudden there's big outburst, and you're going into the pain of experiencing the wound at the time it happened. And so this analogical movement means it's literally you're dealing with the child energy that has not yet been healed. There's trapped energy inside their system still,
which is
that hasn't found an exit yet.
The trapped emotion, right? Emotion is nothing more but energy in motion. So when you can feel that emotion and allow that emotion to move through you without projecting onto anyone, it just needs to be released.
So then the question becomes, how do you deal with that? Well, thankfully you can learn some spiritual kung fu, as we like to call it.
Do tell.
Yeah.
Maybe not
So
secrets, but
yeah. So with regards to spiritual kung fu, there are essentially, a few different ways energy will move between a couple when there's a trigger. Sometimes, people will move away, right? And they'll withdraw, and the energy moves up and away. And that's because the person feels more safe in the spirit world. And typically this is because of a wounding very, very early, at birth in the first 9 months, where they didn't feel safe enough to bring their energy deeply into the earth. So their defense is to leave. And the wounding is kind of, not feeling safe enough in the home to ground in, to bring their consciousness in. Sometimes then people, when they're triggered and wounded, move towards the other person. So it's like a merging that happens. The energy moves towards them and they look to plug in because they don't feel love inside themselves. And this comes from a wounding very early on also in the breastfeeding stages, where they didn't feel they got all their, energetic, emotional, and milk needs met by the mother. So they don't feel full up themselves.
Yeah,
they feel that they don't feel full of love. So they need to get it from someone else. So they move towards someone to get that and pull the energy from them. Another way that this can come up is in a energetic kind of holding, where we call it enduring, where they energetically ground the energy in and down and won't move. This
holding
is like
it,
holding energy in, holding energy, and become stubborn and take on and on and on and on so much and just endure through that kind of process. So some people do that, and some people energetically attack, and that's obviously the easier one to kind of see and feel and heal. We're energetically, and this was kind of our pattern. We were both like, butting head things on occasion. But
that resonates.
You knew how to disperse that, because I would never give up.
Essentially, the energy is all about kind of coming out and trying to control the situation, because this wounding is about not feeling safe with the creator. Don't feel that God has you, feeling separate from the creator. So you have to control everything yourself. And then the last one, there's kind of one where the doors just close. There's kind of the energy just, and you don't feel a thing. So each person, when they're in their wounding, will revert to a primary way that the energy moves. Either disappear or merge in and connect, or endure and stick down, or project out and attack, or just drop a wall. And when you can sort of, energetically spot what's going on with your partner
and with yourself, when you know your own,
you can do the spiritual kung fu, which allows to draw them out of their defenses. So let me give you one now as an example, one that I think all of you will really enjoy, especially for those of you that are in kind of the patterns whereby the energy feels like you feel like you're being attacked by your partner. One of the things that energy is looking for is something to hit off, like a response, a charge. It's kind of like, Gordon Ramsay, the famous chef, for example, built his whole empire off conflict, right? Some people thrive off conflict, and this is what this energy is looking for. So when that's coming at you, what you do is you just like ground your energy into the earth and go no contest. Internally, just no contest, grounding. And that's what I was able to do with Alaya, because I knew a little bit of spiritual
most of the time.
And then until it got too much, I'm like, steamroller as well. But by grounding in and going no contest, when there's an attack coming, you're able to bring your partner out of their body and back into their body, and then start to send energetic cords between the heart, so they can come back in and feel themselves again. Because if you're not entering into the argument, well, it's hard to have an argument with only one person. And
then when the energetics are dissipating and the emotions, that's when you can then have the talk, like, hey, what actually happened? And that's when accountability is needed, and the owning the full, I always call it radical self-responsibility, where you feel like, oh shit, I felt like this because I didn't feel safe, I didn't feel heard, didn't feel supported, whatever it was.
If you can, yeah, come back around and have those conversations. And look, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, my honest opinion is that it only takes one committed person to change a relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
That might sound weird, and also, you know, doesn't give the excuse card to women or men out there who go, I'm the only one evolving. You
Yeah.
only need one person evolving, because if you heal and clear some of your wounds, the signal that you're broadcasting changes, and they will then are responding off your new signal in a different way. So, for example, the very fact that, for example, a woman can drop resentment against her husband because she's fully healed her wounding with her father,
Yeah.
then the resentment drops away. Her husband doesn't, well, now, even though he can't explain it mentally, he's totally doesn't feel the broadcast of resentment anymore. So he can soften to his wife and come into greater surrender to her. And then the relationship changes.
Yeah.
So it just takes one committed person to own what you're going through, drop into the wounding, feel and experience it, process it out of your body, and then watch the magic happen in your relationship.
And when they shut down and disappear.
Okay, that's a great question here. What can you do when you shut down and disappear? So for example, let's say if they disappear, let's call it a withdrawal.
Or shut down.
As the wall. With the wall. Let's think of the wall. With the wall, you can't reach them mentally, so you have to reach them emotionally, energetically with the heart. So it's just, you know, by sitting there or standing there in conversation, you start to send the beautiful radiating beam like a rainbow bridge between your hearts, and allow that broadcast of that rainbow bridge to soften the wall. You're not going to be able to, you know, do it with the intellect, but you can do it with your emotional broadcast of love that stems into their heart, so that they can feel their own heart. You want to also, you know, imagine their heart illuminating in rose-colored light, and they can start to feel a softening, and that's how you can access through the wall.
Beautiful. Energy and vibration is everything. That's true power. I love that.
I mean, if people focused on enhancing their energetic intelligence and their energetic psychology, they would not recognize their lives in 1 year, you know, to have that sense of focus and commitment. You know, it creates such a massive change. And if there's, we're massive into self-actualization, right? To be the best you can be. And the lower levels where people begin is on their body physiology, and you can get great results on body physiology. And then the next level they begin to work on is personal psychology, understanding their personal patterns, belief systems, maybe from childhood. And you can get reasonable far like that as well. But the real big gains come further up the tier, further up the spiral of evolution. The biggest gains exponentially increase when you start working on energetic psychology, i.e. understanding the primary movement of your energy field in relationship to what's going on around you, and understanding the energetic psychology behind that. And then the highest level of yield in terms of the results that you will achieve is in the realms of soul psychology. That's what we find is the biggest results that people can get. But you can't stage steal. For example, there's no point working on energetic psychology until you've got some body physiology, personal psychology under your belt. And if you've been doing those things and haven't got results, it's don't worry, you're not going crazy. It's the fact that psychologists don't understand energy, right? And so they are intellectually understand the patterns, but they don't understand the energetic wound underneath. So maybe I can give a short discourse on the energetic wound.
It's getting better though, I have to say, like especially with the somatic, there's like a massive peak in somatic movement and healing, and that's, I mean, that's amazing.
So if I can share with people quickly the constellation quickly, right? So
we have a few minutes left.
Yeah, the thoughts and the feelings that are kicking off the people inside comes from a belief. Underneath that belief is traditionally where psychology will look at, right? They'll look at the thoughts and the feelings and the belief, and maybe the constellation, the dynamic in the household which created that. Underneath that, there's the unmet need or direct trauma. But underneath that is where the psychologists don't look, and that's the energetic wound. Now, what happens in an energetic wound is kind of like a heavy, painful emotion.
Like the trapped,
that gets trapped.
Emotion.
An energetic scab forms around that, around the outside, to protect it and keep it isolated from the body. And what happens is a little bit of soul fracturing in these woundings, little fragments of your soul break off and disappear because you're no longer whole.
Yeah.
This piece is held in isolation from you. And that is what the pain is, that trapped wound. And that is the constant, that's the wound that's keeping everything in place, including the magnetics in your mind that hold the neural nets in place that lock the pattern in. When you can get all the way down to clear the energetic wound, what happens is that the magnetics holding the neural nets together dissolve. And then what happens is that a new belief can form because there's no longer an association with that pain. And then from the quantum field, new potentials exist and open up, and new associations get made with those new potentials. Therefore, a new neural pathway can begin to be formulated. But you can't get there without dealing with the wound, which is the trapped energetic emotional pain.
Which means like it's just to release it, to release it to your body. So if it's a big cry or anger or something, it just needs to be felt through. You don't even need to understand the why or what actually happened, as long as that trapped emotion can be released.
And this is the basis of shadow work, isn't it? That we see. The basis of shadow work.
Sometimes it is important though to understand what happened, but then it's also really important to let go of the story. And that's what we've been feeling like at this moment in the collective. There are so many people who are holding on to old stories, if it's the patriarchy or whatever story, but it doesn't matter anymore. Right now, it's like we as a race need to collectively release and let go so we can move on. As long as the forgiveness isn't there. Exactly.
We all want to move on. We all want to create something new.
But then there's also, of course, there are so many humans who have who feel also like a certain empowerment, right, with the wounding and with the charge of a wounding that has been there for so long, with definitely with the patriarchal wounding, right? So as long as people, women, men, doesn't matter who, humans, still hold on to that, they won't be able to move on. That's what the shadow work. So start with your father and mother. If you still get triggered by your mom or your dad, there's more work to do. If you have lots of arguments with your partner, or it's not the other, they're just reflections of what's playing out in you. It's like an invitation. It's the same. If you have arguments with your friends or people on the street or
your kids,
children. Exactly.
Everything is teaching us more.
They're all invitations to look in. Oh, wait, is there something trapped in there deep within me that I keep attracting these same encounters? Because that's all what life does. It gives you so many opportunities and invitations to work through the woundings and heal them, right?
Yeah, amazing. I echo, so the process of the wound being covered by a scab, right? And that is, it's just, it feels so painful when that scab breaks off.
Yes.
But then, I mean, this is a time in our life where we can sow so many seeds within our heart and so many seeds within our life, our home, our family. But, seeds have a hard time growing through scabs. So the first thing is really be in the consciousness and be in an experience where you're moving through those layers, whether it's with a coach, whether it's with a partner, but really the raising the level of the consciousness is so important. And I'm just thank you guys so much for doing this together as a union. And I think so what I was feeling about the king and the queen, because I don't ever refer, I don't know why, but these are God codes that's been coming through so strongly, is like men and women holding these frequencies of being the creators, and then like finding one another and being able to co-create a reality, and those being the leaders who people are going to really look to, is like, oh, they've really got something here. They really are living this life that they're consciously coupling, they're raising children, they're having the business and all of that. That those are the people that are really magnetizing, because you're two individuals who have these fields and these frequency fields that are in union. And so that's going to be like oh, the magnetic. And that's what pulled me in, right? That's what pulled me in. And I'm sure that is, I'm not the only one. So doing
Thank
what
you.
you're doing and for being here today. You guys, if you have any questions for Alaya and Christoph, please put them in the chats.
Yeah, and then just to say that the route in is that you have to move through fear, because your entire system has been wired to prevent you coming into contact with that wound. So ultimately, you can't face your fear because it puts you in opposition to it. You have to move through it.
through it.
You have to move through it and into it,
Which is
and it's just hard.
like it's just an initiation for yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to hold yourself through those. Yes, and if you are not able yet, definitely you have a facilitator or a healer or a friend or your partner.
You'll be guided where you can
You'll
get
be
that,
guided.
where you can get that support. People are doing great work out there.
But it's the most important is to realize that, yeah, this gap has to come off. So all that stuck emotion can ooze out and you're free of it. You can fill it up with love.
Absolutely. Amen to that. That's what we all need to be doing, right? Yeah. Thank you so much. You guys share your love for Alaya and Christoph, and any questions that you have. Share about your free gift as well.
Oh yeah. Because it was called the Abundant Woman Show, we just thought we'd give you all an abundance transmission. So I think there's a link there. You can go and register for that. It's an audio transmission that people seem to love. To bring you into the frequency.
I love it.
Fan club of one. That's what we can definitely say.
I'm sure it will be loved by many, 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 many.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a transmission there. Then you'll be connected with us, and you can come into our ecosystem.